My lords, today we are going to address some truly terrible ship designs, i.e. joys such as this, and this one. To round it out, I'll drop some examples of good ships at the end so you know what to look for, and maybe we'll do a tiny battle royale of them all as well. And I'd also stress, remember everyone who originally posted these ship designs are doing so to get better at the game. We all started somewhere. So let's begin with the Brawler battleship design by Wicker Mania. Autocannons, plasma, and a whole heap of armour. Of many of the awful designs that we're looking at today, this one actually isn't that bad. Defensively at least, it's well covered. Armour is better than shields, as less weapons penetrate armour and it doesn't suffer from stellar weather in the same way that shields do, for example pulsars or cosmic storms. The armour hardening shows a great synergy, and this will add additional protection from armour penetrating weapons, such as disruptors, which would mean that 45% of their damage will move from hull onto armour. This is actually quite good. The glaring issue with this battleship, however, is the weapon setup. A key theme that you'll notice in lots of these designs today is a mishmash of weapons, both type but also size. Here we have autocannons ranging from large to small, and plasma both large and medium. The theory behind it is quite clear. The autocannons will drain the shields, and then the plasma will finish off the target, doing additional damage to armour and hull. However, plasma cannon range is either 0 to 60 for medium or 45 to 80 for large, and autocannon range is 0 to 40 for large, 35 for medium, and only 30 for small. So in reality, the plasma will fire at range first, hit the shield and do little to no damage. The battleship, as it's a line brawler, will move into close range, remember, at which point its autocannons will now start firing and its large plasma cannon becomes completely useless since the ship is inside its firing window. In essence, what we have here is a ship that cannot bring its entire weapons platform to bear on one target at any one time. And it also means that when the autocannons finally chip down the target's shields, the plasma is inside its minimum range and therefore unable to burn through the armour and hull. This is not good. But my lords, what is good, glorious in fact, is the sponsor of today's video. The lovely people over at Stardock Entertainment, the makers of sci-fi greats such as Sins of a Solar Empire and Galactic Civilizations, are releasing a new remaster combining the best parts of 3 games into one, Elemental Reforged. In Elemental Reforged, you will start the game by creating a unique character, setting up your opponents, and entering a randomly generated world with the objective of finding and controlling the shards of magic. With each shard you find, your power will grow, unlocking more powerful spells and abilities. But be mindful, other civilizations share your ambition. The story of the game revolves not just around your character, but your choices as well. Diplomacy is deep, characters unique, and this world is indeed set up to be your sandbox. I would highly encourage you, since it has no cost to you, to click the link in the pinned comment or video description and wishlist Elemental Reforged today. Next up, we have a cruiser, modded to look like a star destroyer, and this sports another mishmash of weaponry. On the bow sits a large kinetic battery. Kinetics, as you'll find out, are mostly a poor choice, but when combined with the rest of this setup, truly awful. The kinetic battery has a large range, 120 galactic units to be exact, so this will fire at oncoming enemy ships and break the shield nicely. The complementary weapons that this cruiser has, however, all penetrate shields, so the kinetic battery is therefore largely useless. The strike craft and the missiles somewhat go together as they both penetrate shields, but the kinetic battery just makes the ship quite awful indeed. Moving on to this post, titled, "I have no idea how ship design works." Well, yes, I see that. Here we have another cruiser, but this time sporting an artillery bow with a large blue laser, a torpedo core with 2 torpedoes, a disruptor, and a missile, and its stern is equipped with a medium blue laser. This image, I should note, is from our friends on console, hence the sort of odd UI, but nevertheless it fits the bill as a pretty poor ship design. When designing ships, it's really important to ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish here? I.e., do you want to focus on shields or focus on armour or focus on bypass? The answer to that question cannot just be yes, or you'll end up with this, which does everything really quite badly. At least the lasers don't have a minimum range, as that would make it much worse, but the lasers will do poor damage to the enemy shields, and all of the other weapons penetrate shields anyway. The missiles and torpedoes will hit the armour, and the lone disruptor will chip away at the enemy hull. This mismatch of weapons is not good. Now we have a fallen Empire ship making an appearance, perhaps suggesting that ship design is not that easy. Even the fallen Empires, after all this time, still haven't figured it out. Here we have a battlecruiser with some lovely weapons, but do they complement each other? No, they do not. The focused arc emitter, perhaps the best weapon in the entire galaxy, penetrates shield and armour, and is the best X-slot weapon available to us. That's really good. The strike craft are largely fine as well. They penetrate shields and will attack enemy strike craft, thus somewhat defending your own battlecruiser. However, the issue is we have two different types of energy weapons, the first being medium range plasma and the second being neutron launchers. Both of these weapons are weak against shields, and the ship has no way of damaging shields besides these weapons. There is also the giant issue of range. Neutron launchers have a minimum range of 45, and medium plasma has a maximum range of 60. Thus, there is an insanely small window where this ship can fire both of these weapons together. And we've not even addressed yet the Devastator torpedoes, which have a maximum range of 30. And remember, they also penetrate shields. But there's more. The battlecruiser, rightly, is set to artillery, meaning it will attempt to stay at maximum weapons range and fire its best weapons. In this case, the focused arc emitter and its neutron launchers. This is not a bad thing at all, but the only thing that will ever receive the attention of the 30 range Devastator torpedoes will be smaller corvettes and destroyers that pursue the battlecruiser. Which makes no sense, because torpedoes are designed to blow up large ships, not fast-moving small ships. Is it any wonder how these empires ended up fallen in the first place? Tidal Cataclysm brings us the next design, and you know what? I like the vision. This ship is apparently designed to decloak alongside the enemy fleet and engage in glorious melee combat. With a tachyon lance.
Worst cosmic wars ever!
For those who don't know, a tachyon lance is hull mounted, meaning it can only fire the direction the ship is facing. In reality, this translates to a 25-degree window, and this means that it is best fired from significant range, as therefore it's more likely the enemy vessels will sit within this firing arc. Furthermore, it tends to see less use than a focused arc emitter, because the tachyon lance does poor damage to shields, but excellent damage to armour and hull. Now, although armour and hull are certainly more prominent in our galaxy, most ships still have shields, meaning it wastes some of its damage potential. Essentially meaning, despite its huge range, the first shot often merely tickles enemy shields, whereas the first shot of a focused arc emitter will likely blow up its target. Tachyon lancers absolutely have a place, fighting the Pythorian Scourge as an example, but this ship is not it. To address the autocannons, they are in my opinion one of the worst weapons available in our galaxy. Generally, most ships you'll come up against will have significantly more armour than shields, making kinetic weapons, autocannons included, which are poor at damaging armour, not a great choice. What Mr. Tidal Cataclysm could have done if they wished for a decloaking brawler type ship is in fact use a cruiser and fit it entirely with disruptor weapons, the best weapon in our galaxy, or torpedoes and missiles, examples of which I'll show you on screen now. Moving on, I noticed the name of this one and therefore will say very little about it, but mixing kinetics, hangars, laser, point defense and plasma, this is one of those "what would you like, sir? Yes" examples, so we'll move on swiftly. Now we have a destroyer to look at, from Wiffle from Island. Wiffle was so close to making a really good ship here, All they needed to do was switch the blue laser for a swarmer or whirlwind missile and set the ship to artillery, and they'd be off to the races. This is a poor design due to the laser hitting shields and doing poor damage. The missiles penetrate shields. This essentially means that the laser is pretty much entirely defunct. The other item to address here is the 2 additional reactors. Now, a little known fact is that excess power does actually translate to an increased damage output, but it is quite minor. The formula will appear on screen now, and I'll show you an example as well. I don't think that adding these reactors are worth the additional alloy cost, as the regular ship's reactor is providing enough excess power anyway, but it is something to be aware of. This next one by Tax Fraud 777 I initially wasn't going to include, but I was irritated by the design choice of having 2 large Gauss cannons when they have kinetic batteries unlocked. Why would you do that? Reading the comments, it's clear that they're building this ship to fight the Unbidden, which, although isn't the best strategy, it's not the worst either. Nevertheless, the inclusion of these 2 Gauss cannons annoyed me enough to include it. The next one, by mathematician Frosty, is perhaps the most well-known terrible ship design, and, I don't think it's unfair to say, has gone down in galactic folklore as the quintessential meme of poor ship design. I present to you the Rome-class battleship. The Rome-class battleship is a perfect example of everything jam-packed into one ship, but with the added bonus of some odd choices. All shields, for example, is an odd choice. As you know, lots of weapons can penetrate shields far more than armour, but here we have a ship with no armour at all. Mr. Frosty has also made the choice of amoeba over strikecraft. Perhaps this is due to tech, I'm not sure, but it's worth noting that amoeba are essentially tier 3 strikecraft with higher damage but less accuracy, so the DPS is in theory exactly the same. However, amoeba have worse evasion and less armour, so die faster, making them, in my opinion at least, worse. We then are mixing the medium plasma, the small autocannon and the large laser, and we're left asking why. Fortunately, the lovely folks of Reddit helped out Mr. Frosty with some solid recommendations. Back then, the go-to design was neutrons and gigacannons. I'm sure many of you remember that. Coming in next, we have mercenaries making an appearance. With this, lots of plasma, which, okay, fine, I can get on board with this even if it's not ideal, but one lowly random disruptor. Why? Why must you do this to us? By now you'll all know that plasma has to go through shield and armour, whereas disruptor goes straight to hull. The large and the medium weapons together aren't ideal, but at least they're almost all plasma. But that disruptor, why? Okay, now we have a really good ship design. This is what your battleship should look like, more or less, if you want one of the best designs available. And interestingly, this was posted 2 years ago, so perhaps things have been a bit static for a while. In any case, we have a focused arc emitter, the best X-slot weapon available, and it's paired with weapons that all penetrate shields. These weapons complement each other as best they can, and what's more, they also have really similar ranges. This battleship is a fantastic example of a solid artillery platform that can stay at range and fire the vast majority of its weapons and launch its strikecraft at the same time while staying mostly out of the way. Well done to First Account Got Stolen. I'm going to drop a couple of designs very briefly in here so you have some more examples of good ships. All of these are suitable for dealing with most things in the galaxy. Note the weapon types that complement one another, and also that they are largely using bypass weapons, i.e. disruptors are and have been the best weapons in the galaxy for an awfully long time now. The final ship design to look at, and this is a real blast from the past, this is what ships used to look like. Lance weapons went in the L slot and reactors went in component slots. This meant that you had to balance your defensive and offensive capability with the ship's power output. Armour, as you can see, operated quite differently as well, reducing the damage taken by a percentage rather than a health pool that you had to break through. It really is very interesting to see just how far the game has come. Now, I promised you a battle royale of every ship featured in this report, because why not? So let's do it. Okay, and we are off to the races. Let's fight. The Rome class battleship over here. Oh, it's holding its own. Oh, this one is off on a mission already. The destroyer just got deleted. The cruisers are going down. Look at the swarmer missiles here. This guy is our first account stolen. That's our good designed battleship. What have we got left? Where's Rome? This is Rome. We've got 3 battleships left. It looks like we've got 2 on artillery and 1 on line. You can see the line one getting squashed in between. Oh, okay, we've got... I'm not sure which one this is. But this is our best designed battleship. You can see how good artillery is. As it just flies away and the strike craft are going to win. The winner is first account stolen with this fantastic battleship design as seen on screen now. And that brings this report to a close. Please remember, it's no additional cost for you to click the link in the pinned comment or video description and wishlist Elemental Reforged today.